Hello and welcome to the very special edition of the Hibs Observer big interview here on our YouTube channel. As you'll see, we've got a very special guest today. A man that needs absolutely no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway because we really appreciate him having coming on the show. It's Hibs Scottish Cup winning manager Alan Stubbs joining us here today to discuss. It's almost been 10 years since he took the job at Easter Road, so we're going to go back over that and also talk about the appointment of David Gray as new manager. But first things first, Alan, again, thank you very much for joining us. How are you keeping?
I'm very good, thank you. Sorry, I was supposed to have said it before that. Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure being on. And I'm very good personally. I'm very good. I'm enjoying the bits of sunshine that we're getting in our in our so-called summer. And so yeah, all's good from me.
Brilliant. Well, we'll get down to it just in a moment. But just as always, folks, before we get kick-started properly, I just need to stop for a wee word for our sponsor, MPH Group. They're opening a brand new kitchen showroom in Dunfermline, Fife, with a VIP Vegas-themed launch weekend from June the 14th to the 16th, and that's 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. There'll be roulette games with instant win prizes such as 10% off services, free boiler services, and a chance to enter a draw for even bigger prizes. If you land on zero, you'll get entered into a grand draw for a 4-night stay at Trump Tower in Vegas with a helicopter tour thrown in there as well. So don't miss out. RSVP now at www.launch.mph.group to secure your spot. So as I was saying at the top of the show there, Alex, we're coming up for 10 years since you were appointed Hibs manager. So I suppose the question is, does it feel like it's been 10 years?
No, not at all. And I would never have thought it was that long, unless you would have said just then. Sorry, I'm still thinking about that the prize that's on offer, that four nights in Vegas. That's a nice prize to win.
It's quite a prize. I know. I don't say can't say we're not good to our YouTube subscribers.
Yeah. So obviously going back to that, it seems like it's a time scale that seems to have gone very fast. Not far off 10 years. 2016. And here we are into 8 years past, and it does seem still a very vivid memory, as if it was only a few years ago rather than just over 8 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it was came in 2014 all the way through to 2016, finishing with the Scottish Cup win. Like the memories of the entire time must just stay. They must stay with you, and probably be as vivid as you're kind of alluding to there, as vivid as the day that it all went down there in the end, didn't it?
Yeah, you know what? When I first came in, I was really excited and looking forward to the job. And I knew it was a big job, but I suppose I got a bit of satisfaction and comfort from the fact that I was able to put more or less my own stamp on things, because of coming into the club at the time. There was not a lot of playing staff there. A lot had gone. I had a handful of players, even less staff, and it was about just getting to work as quickly as I possibly could to first and foremost get a squad of players ready for the start of the season, and we were already behind the black ball, as they say, in terms of Hearts had already known their fate, quite probably a month or two before the end of the season, because they were already gone and they were preparing. And then obviously Rangers and Hibs had gone through the playoffs, which no one expected them to not come through, and suddenly to find themselves then being relegated. There was still the feeling of disbelief, when I went there, thinking, how on earth has the club been relegated? Yeah. And it was about trying to quickly move on from that, even though it was such a big deal, but trying to then change people's mindsets and an outlook in terms of moving forward and moving from it, and can we start to build something where that doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
And we knew it wasn't going to happen overnight. We knew that. I must admit, Leanne and George were a huge help to me, along with Graham Matthew, in terms of starting to put the pieces together in a jigsaw. And I suppose our biggest challenge was trying to the fans to buy into what we wanted to do, in terms of the vision, in terms of trying to get them to have the confidence, because there was a lot of the fans were unsure, and probably a disconnect between themselves and the club or the board at the time. Um, so yeah, there was a there was a lot of things to encounter, and try and put right. But I'd like to think that from the time I came in to the time I left, the club was in a much better place than when I first came in.
Yeah, and we were kind of chatting before we came on air, basically just sort of saying that there are quite a few parallels between the situation. Well, obviously not relegation, thankfully,
Yeah,
but there's
yeah,
quite
yeah,
a few parallels between the situation with yourself when you came in, and then what is obviously happening now. Everybody will know by now that David Gray has been appointed new manager on a
yeah,
3-year deal. Like yourself, it was his first senior managerial role. Obviously, you coached in the
yeah,
Everton Academy. Dave's been assisting various managers at Hibs. There
yeah,
was a lot of change behind the scenes, a lot of change in terms of personnel, players, and that obviously you alluded to that disconnect between the club and the fans, which is has sort of festered a wee bit over the
yeah.
last season or so there. But if I could just take you back to the very beginning, how did you feel getting your first job, first senior job in management? Do you feel absolutely ready? Is it possible to feel completely ready? Is there an element of taking a sort of leap of faith and backing yourself?
I think there's an element of all that. Did I think I was ready? Yes. Did I think the time was right to make that step? I did. Um, but ultimately, it does become a leap of faith and all, because you never really know, even though you have full confidence in terms of you think you can do the job, you never really know until you're actually given the opportunity. And, for me, for my first role in terms of management, to have a club the size of Hibernian was a huge honour for me. It wasn't until I really got in there, and I felt the size of the club. I thought it was what I wanted. I thought that I had the fundamentals in place, but they needed a bit of tender love and care again, and they
Mhm.
needed me to put my DNA of and Leanne's and George's, and after them listening to me, the way that I wanted to help run a club and manage a club was exactly what they had in their um, protocol of what they were looking for. So from that point of view, it was a good start.
Mhm.
Um, and I think with the thing with David, I think a lot of managers who've been in a job will be saying to David, "What on earth are you doing?" First and foremost, but I think if anything, David's probably got a little bit of a head start, because he's been a caretaker manager on a number of occasions now,
Yeah.
which will certainly have helped him. Certainly have helped him understand the pressures that go from a match day to a training day. So from that point of view, he would have learned so much just from them short term experiences of when the managers have been in, and we say this on a number of occasions. The turnaround at a club the size of Hibs is far too great. They you can't keep changing the manager. They've got to at some point stick behind the manager and really buy into, as a club, not just the manager, but people above and the fans in terms of how they want the club to progress forward. Otherwise, I think you're in a vicious circle of different managers coming in with different ideas, and the turnover of players is too great all the time
Mhm.
because not every manager is going to like this group of players now, and David's will be exactly the same. He will have a nucleus of players that he would like, and he probably has players in his head now that if he has a chance, he would like to move on and bring his own type of players in. Um, so I really do. I've got a lot of time for David. He's a great guy.
Mhm.
He's a he was the ultimate professional, along with a couple of others when I was there. And I couldn't have been given to a nicer guy, but that's not going to make him successful.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. He needs the fan support, which he will get. I think more than other managers that were going to step into the role because of what he's done there. But ultimately, that's only going to get him so far.
Mhm.
And then it's all about results. He's
Yeah.
like any other manager now. He's in a um, results driven business, and he's got to get results quickly and consistently, so he was able to get time to be able to hopefully model this team into his own mold of how he sees the game.
Yeah. And then obviously, in terms of trying to give them the best chance to do that, there has been that change behind the scenes. Obviously, that there's been investment come into the club, and obviously now Malky Mackay has come in
Yeah.
as sporting director. And I suppose the whole point of that is to overhaul the football operation and start getting results on the pitch once again. So when you came in, it
Mm.
was, as you alluded to there, Leanne Dempster came in as chief executive. You had George Craig, and then
Yeah.
Graham Matty came in a wee bit just after. Did it really help you then to have this kind of fresh input? And did you feel as though when you came into the club that everybody was pulling in the same direction?
I did with Leanne and George and Graham because they were new, and they were with me in terms of trying to provide me with everything I needed to be successful on the pitch. And constant meetings about which way we wanted to go. One of our biggest ones was putting together a plan that we wanted to sell to the fans. We wanted to really try and get out and reach out to the fans to make them to understand, and ultimately, and I think this is a really big one, is to get them to trust us in terms of what we were doing and what we wanted to to do to take the club forward. Because obviously there was disharmony. There was a lot of confidence in the board at the time in terms of there was a lot of friction with Rod and the fans then. So we what we did, we went out to the fans. We wanted to tell them, this is what we're doing. We need you as much as you need us. We need you as well. And slowly but surely, it started to happen. And 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 I, and I think ultimately and all is that where they started to buy in is they could see a style of football that they like to watch, that they could see what we were trying to do, not off the pitch, but on the pitch, which is really important. Um, so from that point of view, I think Malky's going to be huge for David. I know Malky personally, so from that point of view, I know what he can offer. I think, and I'm not just speaking as a friend here from Malky's point of view, but I think Malky could be what Leanne and George were for me with David in terms
Mhm.
of bouncing ideas off him. Malky's got experience in management. He will certainly help David. He, I, with Noah Malky, he is one that would really, if David needed someone to speak to about certain things in terms of coaching, in terms of issues that he might have with some players, he would be someone to bounce them off, and he would give him, I think, good advice from that point of view. Because these are the things realistically that I think David needs someone else to take care of, so that he can just purely focus on the football side of things, the coaching and the managing of the players from a Monday to a Saturday, and let the rest be taken care of by Malky and the other people behind the scenes, and really give David, because as a manager now, he'll feel like he's getting pulled from pillar to post. Everybody now, as a manager now, you you are there to answer to everybody, not just the players, but the staff at the training grounds, the fans, the supporters, the press, directors, board meetings. So that it goes on. He's going to have to be out at games now, watching opposition teams as well as his scouts. So David's David's family are not going to see a lot of him now, especially his young family as well. So
Yeah.
but that's the world he's chose to go in, and I really, really do hope he does a brilliant job. I really do.
Yeah, I think that is just the entire feeling around. Certainly, where I was trying to gauge the Hibs support is that
Yeah.
this is
One
an
thing I would
appointment.
say, and this is an exclusive, I messaged him this morning to wish him all the best, and he hasn't replied to me yet, which I'm not happy about.
All right. Oh dear.
Yeah.
He's made his
He
first
hasn't
wrong
started
move.
off his
His
management role
first
on a
wrong
good
move.
foot. Yeah.
Well, let's hope you hear from him before long. But as you say,
I'm sure it will.
he's probably getting pulled from pillar to post
Yeah, he
already.
will.
That process has probably already started. So, I mean, a big part of this summer is obviously going to be, and as it always is in the summer, it is the transfer window. But
Yeah.
with Hibs this season, it's probably going to be bigger. And probably the club would like it to be, the fans would like it to be, and again, just drawing it back to your experience. You were saying earlier on when you came in that a lot of players had left at the end of the previous season, so you're coming in and immediately having to try and obviously you need numbers in the door, but you want quality as well. You want the right players. So
Yeah.
what is that process like as a manager coming in for the first time and having to deal with that recruitment process and everything that comes with it?
Well, I think what David's got, and this is where he is a little bit ahead of his time. Certainly when I was there, is that he's probably got a bigger pool with Malky and others in terms of what players he would like to potentially the club to move on,
Mm-hmm.
to free up then the wage bill for other players, and also identify what his key targets are with Malky and the other players the other people who are involved in that process. He's got to identify, what areas are his main areas to strengthen, whether that's in the forward line, whether that's defensively with losing, Lewis and Paul now have gone, who he would have been close to. Um, so that would be the main priority. Is he's got to get his key players in as quickly as he can, to get them to settle down, to get a good pre-season under his belt, and then to start the new season on a fresh footing, and really look to take the club forward. Because let's be honest, last season was a huge disappointment in terms of where the club finished. Um, you know, this is realistically a top four team. It certainly is a team or a club that should be in a top six every single season. In terms of their budget now, and I would have thought this budget is significantly more than what I had at the time. With the investment that's come into the club, the problem is it's great having investment, but it's how you spend it, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what a lot of the criticism has been aimed. It's not necessarily about the money that's been available, but it's how it's being spent on the players and whether they are the right type of players for Hibernian Football Club. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of turnover with players who are coming in and are going out very quickly because the recruitment has not been right. He's gonna have to rely on his not just his own judgments but other people's judgments in terms of the players that are coming to the football club, and that is going to be the key area I think that will help him in terms of getting success.
Yeah, in terms of, you've kind of touched on it there already. Like in terms of that, getting sort of external, or not external input, but getting other input from sort of trusted sources. Obviously, the Hibs statement confirming that he was being appointed, said that his backroom team would be confirmed in due course. So when you came in, you brought in guys, like Andy Holden, John Doolan, to help you. So what kind of qualities were you looking for in your backroom team, and then how important were those guys to your success, basically?
Well, they were obviously very important. His backroom staff is going to be crucial to him. I think if anything, they could be his most important signings because they're going to have to be people that he can trust. Even more importantly, they have to be people who are very good at the job in terms of coaching. And they are, I would say, the two commodities that they've got to be really outstanding candidates in. With management now, David's got to make sure that this is not his first and his last job. Because this is the one that's going to set the ball rolling in terms of determining where he's going to go, whether he's going to be a success or not. And these people that he chooses to be his first team coach, his assistant manager, these could be with him for the next 15, 20 years if he goes on and has a really successful career. So, I always wanted people who weren't yes people, who weren't just going to say, yes, boss, yeah, I agree. I wanted a different opinion because even though ultimately I would go with what I thought was best, it would always be after we've had discussions. And if someone says, no, I don't think that's right, I would ask them why. And I'd want to know why they thought different to me, and if they were right, and I thought, yeah, fair enough, I get that, we would have a discussion on what do you think then. So I think it's important to have a different opinion, in terms of that mixture. And I'm sure David will know, in terms of what he wants to bring in, who he wants to bring in, and I hope that it might even be done. It just hasn't been announced yet.
Yeah.
But they need to be in it as ASAP, so they can get familiar with, and they could even be already there. That's the thing. We just don't know yet until the official announcement is. But these people could actually still be there.
Sort of behind the scenes type thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Aye. I mean, so yeah, as I said, we'll probably find out officially about that. We think over the next few days. So just until, I mean, it's one of those it's a kind of great football story that you come in as Hibs manager, your first job, your first signing is then David Gray. He's the guy who scores the goal to win you the Scottish Cup, and then a few years later he steps into that same manager's role that you occupied. So it's one of those kind of great football stories. So what were the sort of qualities of, maybe, I don't want to ask this question because it's that cliche question, did you always know he was going to be a manager type thing? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what were but as a guy, when you signed them, what were the kind of the qualities and personality traits, characteristics that sort of, made you think, I want this guy on my team?
But I think first and foremost, I signed David because I thought he was going to be a really good addition to the squad and to the team in terms of his, he'd had a good background where he played, so his pedigree was good and was sticking out to me. And from what I'd seen on the footage of him, he was what I would have been looking for. Um, the next bit is always from the club's point of view really good to know because he's from the Edinburgh area. He was wanting to get back closer to home, so therefore straight away you know that you're potentially going to have, if he settles down, well, he was going to settle down, but you're going to have a happy player because straight away he's moving back closer to family. So
Mhm.
that more often than not, when you've got a happy player off the pitch, it then subsides to a player on the pitch. And David came in, and straight away his attitude was great in training. For me, then to see how he approached in terms of you know looking to he was a bit of a no nonsense player sometimes in his tackles in training, so people would know coming up against him, no matter whether it was training or the game, they were going to have a tough time against him. Um, and that quickly shone through, and then obviously his leadership qualities. Then you started to see them more and more. You were with him daily, in terms of you know being captain material. You knew that was in his DNA from that point of view. And then what you start to see then is the winners in people
Mhm.
who are not prepared to take second best, people who when you walk off the pitch you are not happy because they either haven't done enough or he's prepared to say something to others in the team because you know standards haven't been upheld to. And so sometimes for me, you wouldn't have to say something at the end of the games because sometimes the players would say it for you. It was good that way because I had a really good dressing room with experienced professionals as well as young lads who set examples. But ultimately the example now is going to come from David because then players will be looking at David. They'll be looking at every move that he makes, and players are very quickly to jump on anything that a manager does wrong. Um, and I think David would be very good from the putting his arm around players type of thing, listening to players. I think he'd be very good at that. I don't think he'll have any problems leaving players out. I think he's got a ruthless side to him, which he will need. Um, so he's got to now make that big change from being a friend of the players to now being their boss.
Mhm.
And that's something that David, I have no issue with him doing. I think he'll do that no problem. But now, whereas you can sometimes have that little laugh, he's going to have that little edge to him now, where he's got to sometimes keep a distance now from not being a player's mate or something that the players could relate to him to or talk to him to. Whereas because now he's a manager
Mhm.
and it's different. It's different conversations now that he will have more often with players.
Is that a difficult balance to strike, do you think, sometimes?
It can be. It all depends on what the conversation's about. Um, but the one thing that I would always say, and what I tried to be with the players, is that my door was always open, no matter what it was. I my phone would be on 24 hours a day, and to some of the characters that I had in there, that was probably wasn't a good thing that I had. Um, but more often than not, I've got to admit that phone didn't ring, which was a good thing.
Mhm.
Um, but that was the way I was. That was the way I wanted to manage. I wanted to, if I could help in any way with any problems that the players had, and I could help, I wanted to help. I wanted them to be able to come to me and speak to me about anything, no matter what it was, because I'd been there. David's been there. He's been a player. he knows now he's going to have to be able to relate to the times where he might need then to have a different outlook now on things. Well, I can't give an answer now from a player's point of view. I've got to give an answer now from a manager's point of view.
Yeah.
So that'll be the thing that will test him. But I'm pretty sure that he'll cope with it no problem.
Yeah, I suppose that's what he's got going in his favour is the fact that he has worked under several managers as an assistant, and then before that as a player. So do you feel that he'll have picked up bits and pieces from from all of those, including
Well,
yourself?
also what he's going to have to have done is that he's going to pick up bits and pieces from the amount of managers that he's played under as well, which will be important. I'm hoping he'll say that I was an influence. I'm sure he would have picked up things from Neil. And then you look at the other managers that have been in there, and and let's be honest, there's probably been too many. But from David's point of view, he all on of the managers that were there, whether it was Higginbottom or whoever it was, he would have picked up something positive from them, and he would have picked up something that, well, I wouldn't have done it that way as well. So therefore, even though you'll pick up some things positive from the managers, you'll also pick on the things that maybe was a negative as well. To think, well, I wouldn't have gone about it that way. I would have done it this way, and that's what he would have learned as well. So I'm sure he's picked up a little bit, but he's got to find what ones he likes and what ones he doesn't like, and bring them all together into what David Gray is as a manager. That's the important bit now.
Yeah. So if you could give him, starting out, give him one piece of advice, what do you think it would be? Apart from answer my text.
Yeah, that'll be the first. The second one would be lucky, because you need, no matter whether you're a football player or whether you're a manager, the one thing you'll need is a bit of luck. And I think that can be overshadowed sometimes in terms of how important that is. You look at one of the best managers that we've ever seen in Britain, in Sir Alex Ferguson. He had a bit of luck in terms of what they all say, Mark Robins scoring the winning goal in the last minute. Otherwise, he was getting the sack. He goes on and he's he is the most successful British manager that we've seen. So therefore, there's the luck that you need. He's obviously going to have to. He's going to have to be diligent. He's going to have to put the hours in. He's going to have to bring in the right players. So recruitment is key. His management style is key. But ultimately, it's going to come down to getting results and having a bit of luck.
Yeah.
I'd rather be. Sometimes it's better being a lucky manager than a good manager.
Yeah, absolutely. You probably apply that to all walks of life, really, couldn't you? So just maybe taking it away in a slightly different direction for a wee minute or two. It was, I think, one of the things that was missing from last season that Hibs fans had gotten used to under over the maybe different regimes, different managers, was that there was kind of, and I think it's one of the things that kind of went against Nick Montgomery in the end, is he just wasn't maybe able to get that sort of statement result, a big result against a big team. It never really came close a few times. There was the Edinburgh Derby at Tynecastle. I remember Hibs should have probably won that game. Should probably have beat Celtic at home, but just didn't quite get over the line. So obviously one of the things that sticks out from your tenure, and obviously this is what fans will be hoping they can get back a bit next season. Obviously, you had a good record against the likes of Rangers in particular. So how did you approach these games?
I think the one thing is that at the time, and this was the case, is that we had a strong, especially in the second season, we had a strong squad of players, and our starting 11 was as good as Rangers starting 11. It was certainly as good as Hearts. Hearts were stronger than us in the first season. There's no doubt about that. And they end up going on and they won the league comfortably. But even though we were still building and we were, on the back of playing catch up in that first season with everybody, we were still quite competitive. We weren't a million miles off. And in the second season, we added a few players to that group. And then on our day, we look at our results against Rangers. I think we were 50-50, more or less, in the games. We'd won half of them, and we'd lost half. So there was nothing in the games apart from, I'd say, that one of the early games in the cup where Rangers won at Easter Road, and it was comfortable really for them. I think anything after that, we go to Ibrox and win. We give them a close games at Easter Road. Obviously we win. A small cup final against them, which they won't like me hearing me say, because I think I get under their skin. Rangers fans, they don't like me for some reason. I don't know what it is.
Can't imagine.
Yeah. So we were really close. I think from that, and looking at the second season and all, when we played Premiership teams, more often than not, we were the better team against them. You wouldn't have, you would have thought that Hibs was a Premiership team rather than when we've played, Dundee United, played Ross County, all these teams in Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup at Easter Road. You would have, they were close games, but I thought in terms of quality, we had slightly the more quality on show. So that and I think ultimately what I tried to do with the players is that I more or less convinced them that they were as good as what they were up against, if not better. And I think belief is a huge thing in terms of players. And I look at now in terms of where Rangers spending and Celtic spending is. I think Celtic are on another level to everybody. I really do. But in terms of where Hibs are now, in terms of and even in terms of their budget, I would think they should have a better caliber of players for what they are spending. I think you look at when we were there, and I think all the players would agree. John McGinn was our marquee player. He was the go-to player, and he would inspire the other players to lift their game to another level. And I think right now, when I look around this Hibs team right now, is there anybody like that now who can really grab the game by the scruff of the neck and lift the rest of the players? And I'm not too sure there is one of them right now. And I think that's what David's needs. If he can't get one of them, he needs maybe 3 or 4 players who can really try and, grab the game by the scruff of the neck when it's not going their way, and really just turn it around. Whereas I think over the last few years, from the games that I've watched, sometimes I feel as if they do go 1-0 down, there's not enough amongst the team to really try and turn it around. Is there enough characters in there to really go, come on, lads, this is not acceptable? And whether it's I see this sometimes when I go and watch Everton, and it's the same with the fans. Sometimes it's one tackle that can lift the whole stadium, that can change things. And I just think sometimes with that, I don't necessarily see that sometimes with this Hibernian team. So that's going to be important for David to do that. Is there enough character in the team?
Yeah.
Is another thing. Do the fans not? I think that's probably one thing from when the fans look at the team. I've seen some fans say that, is there enough characters in the team? And I probably would say is that a dying breed in players now? Is there enough characters in the game? Do we see enough of that? And I'd probably have to agree a little bit
Mm-hmm.
with that. Sometimes bringing in too many foreign players can have that effect. They don't feel the club, whereas a lot of local players or Scottish players, they get it a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's trying to find that balance and that and them ingredients, that David will have to do to try and, but that's what he's got to do. He's got to make this his team,
Yeah.
and they have to then represent him, because I wouldn't want my teams to be a soft touch. Same with David. I'm pretty sure David's team's not going to be a nice team because it's not a reflection of him. Because ultimately, when he gets the team right, the team more often than not is a reflection of you.
Yeah. Aye, well, that was certainly one of the things that were levelled at the team last season, and quite a lot of times is that people felt they were sort of too soft, and it showed, I think, in results and performances at times. I mean, just for yourself, so we were talking then about some of those big games, derbies, Rangers, the big Scottish Cup games. Do you miss the buzz of management at all?
I suppose I'd be lying if I said I didn't, but I am enjoying what I'm doing now. I do. I think in certainly in terms of my last couple of jobs, you know, I've always been brought up with having a strong dressing room, and I didn't feel as if I had that. Certainly at St Mirren, I didn't think I had that. Um, I think I had one or two players talking to the board upstairs, you know, um, because they didn't like what I'd said, and I did make a few mistakes there in terms of players coming in who weren't probably strong enough. Um, but ultimately, you can only bring in what's available out there, and also, you're behind everything. When I was there in terms of recruitment, all the free transfers, more often than not, that you would have been interested in, had already been snapped up. So yeah, I think a lot of St Mirren fans think I just blame the club, and it's not the case. And I've said this openly in other things. Did I make mistakes? Yes, of course I did. But there was other factors that sometimes people wanna brush aside as not being factors when certainly they were. So I think that's going to be very important for David in terms of having a good dressing room, because that
Yeah.
will be so important for him in terms of that.
Yeah. Well, just before we finish up, we're talking about good characters and big characters. So in terms of Hibs, I don't think I can let you go without talking a wee bit about Lewis Stevenson and Paul Hanlon. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's end of an era stuff at Hibs. They were just, they two guys who really embodied the club. So what were they like to work with?
Well, first and foremost, I don't think there's a very very good chance that you won't see it again, because of the way modern football is going now. Um, I haven't got, and probably you haven't got enough time
I know.
on this show to speak about them in terms of what
I
they
know.
were.
Shouldn't have
I,
left that
I,
till
I think,
last.
yeah, I think you always judge someone by what they are as a person, and I can't speak highly enough about the two individuals as people more than players. Put the playing side to one side, because they were model professionals, but as two individuals, I would struggle. I've come up against some really really great lads, great players over time. And I'd say one of the nicest guys that I've ever come across in football is Kevin Kilban, who I had at Everton. and Lewis Stevenson and Paul Hanlon are right up there alongside him. And I think that's probably the best compliment I can play them, because as footballers, they were sometimes, in terms of professionals, they were perfect. They were no problem whatsoever. They would always try and be fit, even through when they were getting criticism as individuals, and we know that happened. They would always be the first ones to step forward, no matter what. And they knew they were sometimes the brunt of fans' frustrations. And I seen at Everton, sometimes the local players are always the ones who get criticised more for some reason, which I struggle to get my head around. When I seen it sometimes with Leon Osman at Everton, because he was a local lad, he would sometimes come in for more criticism than, say, another player who was a foreign player, but didn't do the same. But Leon would get more criticism than him. It baffles me, and that sometimes applied to Paul and Louis. So, and I think it would be wrong for me to prolong or talk too much about that, because there's only positives that you can speak to them about. Honest, they're two gentlemen. They're two of the nicest guys I've ever come across in football. Two of the best professionals that I've ever worked with, and they leave Hibernian Football Club with nothing but credit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's always very telling, and I think it seems to happen every time you ask somebody about Paul and Lewis, is they always talk about the people first and the players second, and I think that speaks volumes for the character of both of them. So obviously Lewis is he's away to Wraith Rovers, so we're still waiting to find out where Paul Hanlon's going next, but obviously it'll be interesting to see where they end up for the rest of their careers.
Also with Louis and all, Louis comes across as like he's that lad who's probably how old's Louis now? Is he 33?
30. Oh no, he's 36. I think he is.
Okay, so but he's the annoying one, because he looks 36. Sorry, he's 36, but he might look 27. He's got them boyish looks, and believe me, there was no player in that dressing room that would cross Lewis Stevenson, because he definitely, Louis he had the angelic looks, really quietly spoken, but would absolutely nail someone if it was there. And he'd never seen him lose his temper very often, but when he did lose his temper, there wasn't many players who were in front of him. He was a great pro. He was a really, really great lad, and I wish him all the best at Wraith. It'll be, it's a really good move for him, and the same for wherever Paul goes either.
Yeah, that quiet authority sometimes that these guys have got. It's a quiet respect, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Well, Alan, I think I've taken up more than enough of your time. Just want to kind of reiterate, how much we appreciate you coming on. It's a big help to us, obviously, trying to grow this YouTube channel of ours. For everybody tuning in, I do hope you've enjoyed it. We'll have kind of more content on the appointment of David Gray coming over the next few days, so stay tuned for that. But finally, just before we go, I do want to put on record that a massive thanks to Alan Stubbs for joining us for this very special edition of The Big Interview. So thanks to you as well, folks, for joining us, and we will catch you again next time. Thank you very much.